Hi, I'm Steve with Danfoss Drives. This video will discuss VACON Live, a Windows PC to drive interface tool. I'll show some methods of connecting a drive and a demonstration using VACON Live. This will include how to download the application, the steps to establish a connection, how to read and write to a connected drive, and how to save parameter and service files. Please take a moment now to pause the video to read the safety warnings shown here. Failure to follow these warnings could result in death or serious injury. VACON Live is a free, fully featured Windows-based software tool used for commissioning, parameterization, monitoring, and diagnosing VACON 100 family and VACON 20 family drive products. Included is VACON Loader for updating drive firmware. To download VACON Live, go to www.danfossdrives.com. Click on Service and Support, click Downloads, click Drives under the Business Unit, and click My Drive Suite. Next, click Open My Drive Suite, then scroll down until you find VACON Live and click on the download icon. Here are the drives that can use VACON Live. They include the VACON 10 all frame sizes. In the VACON 20 series, the standard version of the VACON 20 all frame sizes, the VACON 20X, the VACON 20 cold plate, and for the VACON 100 series, the standard 100 includes the industrial, flow, and HVAC varieties, as well as the VACON 100X. The PC interface cable for the VACON 10, 20, and 100 series are all the same. The VACON 10 and standard VACON 20, they do use a micro communication adapter, so you would want to use the part number 181B0493 micro communication adapter kit, which will give you the cable as well as the micro communication adapter that will fit onto the drive. If you have a VACON 100 or a VACON 20X or VACON 20 cold plate, you can order part number 181B0244, and that would just be the cable only. To use VACON Live with a VACON 10 or standard VACON 20, first remove the rubber plug covering the connector port. Then connect the micro communication adapter to the drive, and finally connect one end of the USB to RS-485 cable to the micro communication adapter and the other end to your PC USB port. To use VACON Live with a standard VACON 100 drive, first remove the keypad from the drive. Then connect one end of the USB to RS-485 cable to the keypad port and the other end to your PC USB port. To use VACON Live to connect to a VACON 100X, first disconnect the keypad, then connect one end of the USB to RS-485 cable to the keypad port and the other end to your PC USB port. Note that the VACON 20X and 20 cold plate also make a similar connection to the keypad port. The VACON 100 series of drives have a standard Ethernet port that can be used to connect to VACON Live. First, remove the outer cover of the drive, release the control unit locking tabs, and then flip the control cover up. Next, connect the Ethernet cable to the Ethernet port of the drive and the other end to the local network or directly to the PC Ethernet port. The VACON 100X also has a standard Ethernet port that can be used to connect to VACON Live. First, loosen the screws on the power head and separate the two halves of the drive. Next, connect the Ethernet cable to the Ethernet port of the drive and the other end to the local network or directly to the PC Ethernet port. After installing VACON Live, click on the icon to open it. You'll see the startup mode window, and you can select either online, which would be to connect to a drive that's connected to your computer, either directly or through the Ethernet, or you can open up an offline file for parameterization and viewing service information. So I do have a drive hooked up to my computer, so I'm going to click online. It's going to search for any drives that are connected to the computer. If the one you want is found, just click it and connect to selected. If it doesn't, you can cancel out of that, and you can click on Serial Ethernet and scan for other drives that may be connected. Again, just click on it, connect to selected, and it will start loading the parameter tree. Down at the bottom, lower left side, you can see uploading tree. Once that disappears from saying uploading tree and it's not showing any activity, then it's finished. You can also scroll down and you can see the progress as it's loading all of the parameters and values. So now everything is loaded. There's no more progress in the bar here. A few things to point out. Down at the bottom, it tells what kind of control is in place. Right now it's in I/O control. So using the input-output terminal strip. The data logger is active. If I was to run the motor, it would be in a clockwise direction. It says that I am online, so I am connected to a live drive. It's in a ready state. It is not running. There are no faults. There are no alarms. So when we look at the parameters here, there's a lot of them. So this, as you can see, there's just many of these parameters and values that can be viewed. One thing to note is anything that starts with a P is a parameter that is editable. Anything that's a V is a value, which is read-only. You can't change that value. The first thing I would recommend here is to save your parameter set that you currently have. In case anything that you've changed doesn't work, you can always revert back to the original. So to do that, you can click up here, Save File, this particular file name that it gave. I'll hit Save. I already had saved it once before, so I'm going to save it again. I'll say yes, I'm going to overwrite it, and now it's saved. So the parameter set that I have is now saved. I can go back in and I can edit that file if I wanted to, or I can edit these items here if I want to change what's in the drive right now. So that's an easy way to get into this. Some things to look at as we get down through here. First thing we have is what application do we have. So most of these are going to be just like you would use from the keypad. Most of these will be exactly the same. It's just an easier way to go about changing these parameters. So I have a minimum reference of 0, maximum of 60 Hertz, my accel and decel time, my current limit. I'm going to change my current limit. I have a very small motor hooked up to it. So I'll say, we'll just make that 1 amp. It is an induction motor. It's 230 volt, 60 Hertz, 1740 is fine. Motor nominal current, 0.66. That's the minimum value I can assign to it. It's actually less than that. Motor cosine of phi. All of these things can be changed. So again, anything with a P can be changed. It's a parameter. You can also see that these are highlighted yellow, items that can be changed. The items that are not highlighted that start with a V are only values. I can't do anything with them. So I've changed only a couple items. One of the things I can do is I can go back and compare this to a file. So up here we have a parameter comparison, and I can compare it to defaults, or if you drop down I can compare it from a file. When I hit compare, it's going to ask me which file do I want to compare it against, and I'll pick the one that I just saved. So as you can see, there are only these 4 highlighted items that are actually changed. Everything else that's not highlighted has remained the same. So we have current limit, motor nominal current, and current limit. And as we scroll down through here, we can see in the result column, same values. When you get to the very end, we'll see some that say invalid ID. Those are typically going to be operating times and things that are unable to be changed. We could also compare this to defaults. So you'll see a lot more items here that are different, and I found that comparing this to defaults doesn't work real well. The values assigned over in this value of the default column typically are going to be mostly zeros or a very low default value. What I'll do is I'm going to save the service information file, and to do that we go up to Drive, an item called Service Information. I'm going to hit OK. You can add a comment if you'd like to. I'm going to click No Comment, and it will go through and pull all of the parameters and values. It will bring in any data logger files that were saved, all of the fault logs, information about the drive, and this will usually take a minute or two, depending on how many faults have been logged into the fault log. Then we get a pop-up box asking where we would like to save that information, and I'm going to save it to my desktop again. And drive service info loaded successfully. Hit OK, and I can close that. Now this gives you quick access to seeing a lot of the information about the drive. So now I can open up that file that I just saved. And we have two files here. We have the DPD file and the DSD file. So the DSD file is the service information file. I open that, and that will put it in under the files, so not currently connected drive. And again, it gives us our parameters and values, but also our complete fault log. It would also show any data logger files if there were any. In this case, there aren't. So we can see that we've got a total of 40 faults that were logged at some point in this lifetime of this drive. 40 is the maximum amount of faults that it can save. So the last fault that's showing is software updated. So I had just updated the software, and it gives you information. You can hover over any of these, and they will give you a possible cause and a possible way to remedy the fault. If you need to call into tech support, they may ask you a specific code and ID number. So here we have an external fault. That was a fault number 51 with a subcode or an ID of 1051. The date and time that it occurred. I don't have a real-time clock battery installed in this drive, so it will not give you an accurate date and time, but the operating time is accurate. So we can see that the oldest fault was at 5 minutes and 22 seconds, and the most recent fault was at 20 minutes. We can see what the conditions were when it occurred, motor current, frequency reference, all of these particular pieces of information that could be helpful when trying to troubleshoot any of these faults that you have. Another thing you can do from the drive drop down is drive information. This will bring up a box that gives you specific information about the drive. And here we can see the name of the drive. So if it hasn't been changed, it typically will be the serial number of the drive. That can be changed within the parameter menu. The brand, it's a VACON, and it's a 100. Date of the last software package that was installed. Serial number of the drive itself. So in this case, it does match the name of the drive. The keypad that's installed, so it does have a graphical keypad. Here's the serial number of the keypad, the software version of the keypad itself, the software package installed in the drive. So right now it's software ID 72, software package version of 31, and here's the name of the software. Control unit, the basic I/O board. This would be the board that's installed in the A and B slot of the drive. Slots C, D, and E. In this case, we don't have any option cards installed. information on the power unit, the application name, in this case it's VACON 100 Industrial, and other information, so system load, the energy counter, and how much operating time this drive has seen, and the port that I'm communicating through. We can copy that if you wanted to. This will also be information that can be obtained within the service information file that you've saved. This icon, of course, was the save file, so that would save your parameter set for use later. This icon, if you'd like to connect a new drive, and you can connect multiple drives to this, they just have to be on a separate connection, either with another USB cable or through the Ethernet. We have some other options here that are not, most of these are grayed out, as you can see, because we're in an offline file. If I go to the online drive, now these become available. So we have an operating toolbar where we can run the drive. That brings a small bar down here at the bottom. We have parameter browser, which is what we're in right now. We have fault diagnostics. If I click on that, this would bring up initially just any active faults. There are some other options here. We can clear the fault history. We can clear the active fault. We can load the fault history, load active faults, or load all faults. When we load all faults, we'll see the same information that we saw previously. So all of the faults have loaded. So we have that. So we can have a number of different tabs here. We have a monitoring window. So now we have a monitoring window open. We can't read any information because we don't have anything that we're monitoring yet. So this is typically what you'd see the very first time you open this up. But we can add monitoring values simply by hitting add and then selecting the menu value, or we can go in and we can select a parameter, firmware, or application. Most of the time we can just go with menu value. And this box will give us the items that we can select from to monitor. So here we have frequency reference. I'll add output frequency. Motor current. Motor voltage. DC link voltage. I'll select slot A, digital inputs 1, 2, and 3. I can move this up and down, and we can add as many of these values in here as we'd like. So I'm going to do my digital inputs 4, 5, and 6. And my relay outputs. I'm also going to add my analog input 1 and analog input 2. So again, we can add as many as we'd like to in here, and you can resize this to whatever suits your needs. So once we have our monitoring values that we want to look at, we can come up here to the play button and start this graphing. If I give the driver run command, we should see things change on the graph. So I just gave it a run command through my I/O simulator, and my frequency reference is about 25 Hertz, and I can change that value by adjusting the potentiometer, and we can see Here, my potentiometer is at 100% for analog input 1. If I bring that down, analog input 1 is now at 0, but analog input 2 is still at 40, almost 43%. The VACON 100s by default will use analog input 1 and 2. So as I adjust that analog input 2, we can see the speed of the drive changing. We also see here on my digital input 1, 2, 3, we have a 1, 0, 0. If I turn digital input 1 off, it goes to all zeros. Digital input 2 would give it a reverse command. So the 0 is inferred here. So it's a 0, 1, 0, meaning digital input 2 is turned on. Digital input 3 will give an external fault, and we can see here it did show a 1, which would be a 0, 0, 1, meaning digital input 3 has been activated, meaning that there is an external fault. I'll turn digital input 3 off, go back to monitoring, and we can see down at the bottom here, fault code is at 51 with an ID of 1051. So digital input 6 will reset that fault. So when I hit digital input 6 on and back off, we see that the fault is cleared. Digital input 4 is turned on. Digital input 4 by default gives it a 10 Hertz frequency reference. Digital input 5 by default gives it a 15 Hertz reference. And then digital inputs 4 and 5 turned on together gives it a 20 Hertz frequency reference. So it's an easy way to tell if your digital inputs are actually functioning. Our relay outputs, so right now this would be a 0, 0, 1, meaning relay output 3 is on, which is a ready indication. The drive is ready but currently not running. If I turn digital input 1 to the on position, we see that relay output 1 is now turned on. We are in a run state, and we can see things change on the graph. If I turn that off and turn digital input 3 on, we'll see this go to a 1, 0. It'll go directly to the fault menu. So that took it out of a ready state into a fault state. And we can see that here. So again, I reset it by using digital input 6. And now we're back into a ready state. So that's an easy way to use the monitoring screen. You can use that for troubleshooting the drive or just basic monitoring of the drive as it's being used. Another thing you can do with this is using this operating toolbar. I can come down here, I can control this drive directly through the computer. So once I check PC control, we are no longer through the I/O box. Even though the values change here, nothing happens. I can't give it a run command anymore. All commands have to come through the computer. So I can use these buttons down here. So if I bring my slider up, this is my reference speed. We can see that now when I hit the start button, it's running. I can adjust the speed. I can stop it here. I can hit this button to coast to stop. I can run this and hit this reverse, and it should change the direction of the motor. And it is in fact doing that. So you can see it went from a positive to a negative value here in the frequency reference, and the output frequency is following my reference. Do the same thing, uncheck it, and it goes back to a clockwise rotation. So a few other features of this monitoring window: we can turn on and off various graphs that we're looking at. So if I give this a run command, if we wanted to turn off any of these, I can uncheck these and only look at the specific graphs that are of interest. Another thing you can do is right click on the line, and I can remove that item, and I'll just remove all of them. So now we're not monitoring any information again because we have no information to monitor. So another way you can add information into there is by looking over here and right clicking, and we can say, let's put that into monitoring 4 for my frequency reference. The output frequency, motor current, motor voltage, and DC link voltage. So when we go back into monitoring, those values are now listed here. And if I hit the play button, we can monitor those items as well. So a couple different ways of adding those items in. There are some check boxes over here if you'd like to auto scale. This could be useful when you're trying to view any specific data in a much smaller range. It could be helpful. Otherwise, you basically end up with just a straight line. Also, the faults can be reset from this menu. So down here at the reset, so if I introduce an external fault, here we went to the fault screen and we see the fault that was generated. Go back into here, and instead of using a digital input to reset it, I can just hit reset here. And now we're back into a ready state. The top menu lists a help area. If you click on contents, that will bring up information on how to use the program, and it'll go into a lot more detail than what I've shown you. So I'm giving you just the very basic information in order to use this, and the most commonly used resources you would probably want to use here. But you can go through any of these items. It will talk about how to use it, why you would use it, explanations of the various buttons. So another function of VACON Live is the ability to load software into the drive. So if you have a new version of the software that you would like to load into here, you can click on the Launch Loading tool. It'll bring up a box saying, do you want to close the communication for VACON Live? Yes, I do. And it will bring up this VACON Loader window. So browse for where you have your file stored for your software. I'm going to select this one, which is the same software that's already in it. Open that, click Next. It will again scan for the drive. I'll select this drive, connect, and here we can select what language packages we want in. So it will default to this one: English, German, Finnish, and so on. So there is Spanish in this particular language file. So if you wanted to be able to show any of the information in Spanish, pick that one. Click Next. Device will reset after software is complete. Update cannot be started if drive is in run mode. It is not in run mode. Click Next, and it will load the software. Once all the files have loaded, we'll get a box that says the operation was successful, and do we want to close the application? In this case, I'll say yes. And note that I did speed up this video. This process might take between 5 and 10 minutes to complete. Now I can go back to VACON Live and select a new drive. So again, we're loading the parameter tree. Again, down here we can see it's in the process of uploading. And as these items get loaded, they are slowly turning to blue. And now our tree is fully loaded. So in addition to the all of the parameters that are listed here, to make it easier, you can click on individual items over here to make smaller areas for modification to the parameter sets. So rather than view the entire menu structure, we can click on individual items, parameters, motor settings, motor nameplate, so you can see that we can put it into a more manageable set of parameters that we can manipulate. So that's the basics of VACON Live. I hope this has been helpful. I appreciate your time to watch this, and hopefully we've been able to help you learn a little bit more about how to use VACON Live. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Again, this is Steve Floyd with Danfoss Drives. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for viewing. We hope this information has been helpful. Danfoss Drives can provide additional technical support, parts information, or repair services options by contacting us through one of the following methods. For immediate access to customer service or a technical support expert in North America, call 1-888-DANFOSS or 1-888-326-3677, or contact us through email. For technical support, the email address is drives.ts.na@danfoss.com. For customer service, the email address is drives.cs.na@danfoss.com. For after-sales service, the email address is drives.ts.service.na@danfoss.com. Additional information is also available on our website at www.danfossdrives.com. For contact information in areas outside of North America, please visit our global website at www.danfoss.com. Thanks again.